Hey there, welcome to episode 98 of Mike's Collection. I'm Mike, and the part of my collection that I'm going to be talking about today is just some of the new toys I've got since I last spoke to you. Now, my last video, actually, I just posted it a couple of days ago, and in that video, I just dumped a whole bunch of new toys at you because I had really gotten behind and things were piling up, and it was really starting to get overwhelming with the amount of toys I had, and I thought, well, that's going to be a whole bunch of videos to get that done. So rather than, procrastinate any further, I just did one long video where I just showed you everything, and I didn't spend as much time talking about each individual thing as I maybe normally would have. So it was, it felt like a real load off my shoulders to finally get everything posted, and I was able to clean up my man cave in here. It's probably the cleanest it's looked in ages because when I get something new, I can't put it away until I filmed it and put it on Instagram. So right now I'm like caught up with everything. Maybe I'll do a quick little pan around here to show you how clean it looks in here, which is really nice. But anyway, so literally the day after I posted that video and I was all up to date, then I got this big box come in the mail from BigBadToystore, which is the online retailer there where I buy a good chunk of my toys. So I figured I'm going to jump right into this. I'm at the very least going to film the intro, and I'm going to show you everything that I've got in the boxes. That way I can at least open it up. And I don't know if I'll have time to film the whole video today. When I'm filming this, it's Thanksgiving here in Canada, and I have to be down at my folks' place for dinner in about an hour. So I probably won't have time to do a whole video now, but I'm going to at least film the intro, so you'll see everything in the boxes. Then I can open up and fiddle around with it, and then I'll come back and I'll shoot the later half where you can see everything outside of the packaging. So there's not nearly as much stuff to cover today. I can go into a little bit more detail, but it's still only, let's see, 6 products. So this shouldn't take very long. Hopefully this video will be a little easier to digest. So let's get started. So the first couple things I have to show you are a couple of Funko Pops. Now, you're probably aware I have quite a lot of Funko Pops. I try not to buy, generally, a whole collection of something. So if like there's Marvel Pops, I try to get like my 2 or 3 favorite Marvel characters and not buy the whole set because it would just be way too overwhelming otherwise. So a while back, they put out some Karate Kid Pops. And even though Karate Kid is one of my all-time favorite movies, I didn't buy the Mr. Miyagi or the Daniel LaRusso. I only bought Johnny, who was basically the villain of that show. I always loved the character of Johnny, kind of like Ivan Drago. He's one of my favorite movie villains from the 80s. I don't know, there's just something appealing about this karate bully. I always just really liked him. So anyway, I bought the Funko Pop of Johnny Lawrence from the Karate Kid series. And I was really excited by the prospect of the show Cobra Kai when it was first announced. And it was this show starring the original cast of the Karate Kid. It was a sequel, but it was only available on some YouTube premium channel that you had to pay for, and I wasn't about to do that. So I knew this thing existed. I hoped it was good. I wanted to see it, but I had no way of watching it. Anyway, you might be aware it recently got put on Netflix, and so I binge watched the first 2 seasons of Cobra Kai, and I absolutely loved it. It was everything I wanted it to be and more. So if you haven't watched Cobra Kai yet, even if you're not a big fan of the Karate Kid, I think it definitely helps if you're a fan of the Karate Kid and you know like all the details of the original movie, because sometimes it's even just music cues that kick in and you're like, that's the song from the original Karate Kid. But I think it's a great show otherwise. I actually recommended it to my mom and she binge watched the whole thing, and then last time I saw her she told me she recommended it to her brother Ken, and Ken is not the type of guy I would have expected to watch this, but now he's watching it. So yeah, everybody that watches this show seems to love it, so check it out. Anyway, so the first time I sat down to watch Cobra Kai, I literally made it through half an episode and I was like, I love this. And I knew they had just recently put out some Funko Pops based on Cobra Kai. And so I bought Johnny Lawrence again. I didn't necessarily need him a second time because this looks actually kind of similar to the previous figure. But rather than the Karate Kid box, it's got the Cobra Kai box. I suppose this is the older Johnny. He's supposed to be about 30 years older than the previous Funko Pop. But Funko Pops don't have a whole lot of detail in the face, so I don't know if they really successfully made him look older or not. But anyway, I just loved the show so much. It was just an impulse buy. I was like, I need these things right away. And I was thinking, because I watched it the first week that it was on Netflix, and I was loving it so much. I was like, what if other people watch this and they love it as much as I do, and then everybody goes online and buys these and they're sold out? I don't think that happened. They're still available online. But that was kind of my impulse thinking. I was like, I need these. So I went and bought Johnny, again, my favorite character. And you'll see on the back of the box here, the only other character available in this line is a grown-up Daniel LaRusso. So even though I don't have the young Daniel figure, this time around, I did decide to get Daniel as well. So now I've got both the... Well, I was going to say, in the original Karate Kid movie, he's the antagonist, Johnny's the protagonist. That's not really the case in Cobra Kai. They're kind of both the antagonist in a way. I don't want to talk too much about it in case you haven't watched it, but I highly recommend you do. So there you go. I'm very excited to add these guys to my collection. Next up, I've got another Godzilla from Neca. I have quite a few of these already. They've been making Godzillas specific to all the various movies, and this one is based on Godzilla Tokyo S.O.S, which is one of the later Toho movies. I don't know the year off the top of my head, but it was like the 2000s. So yeah, these are some of my favorite Godzilla movies, because even though I own all of them, the really old ones are pretty corny. It can be a little hard to sit through, you know, the opening hour of the movie before Godzilla shows up and you're just watching a lot of scientists talk and they're dubbed over, you know, kind of poorly. But these movies were much more enjoyable. The effects were much more up to snuff. Like, it was still a guy in a rubber suit, but the rubber suits looked really good and they were enhanced with some like computer effects and everything. So Tokyo S.O.S is really one of the cooler Godzilla movies. So I don't know if this doesn't look to be the movie poster. At the very least, it doesn't match the DVD copy of this that I have. But you can see there that it features Mechagodzilla, Mothra, and yeah, that's about it as far as other creatures, I think. So another little shot of Larva Mothra on the side. You see the three main monsters on the top there. On the back, a picture of the figure, which we'll take a look at in detail once I open this up. So I don't know if you can get a very good look at him in here. It's a little dark in there, but there's a shot of the figure on this panel here. And yeah, I'm really excited about this one, even though this is probably my 10th Godzilla from Neca. This is one of my favorite looks for Godzilla. Like the modern Godzilla from the current American-made movies. He's a little kind of pudgy and his head's kind of small. On the really early Godzillas, he looks a little goofy at times. This was kind of the era where Godzilla actually really looked cool and, you know, kind of scary. And so yeah, I'm excited to open this guy up and take a look at him. So next up, we've got a carbonized Stormtrooper figure. So now there's a lot of glare on this thing because not only is the figure really glossy, but so is the box. This whole box is this reflective silver. So you see it says Stormtrooper along the side there. On the back, you get this picture of the Stormtrooper, but again, it's very reflective. But yeah, pretty nice. So these carbonized figures are something they've been doing. I think the first time we saw it was when the Mandalorian figures came out. So like the Mandalorian, there was a Sister Inquisitor figure, and I can't even remember who else. There was 3 or 4 carbonized figures. And yeah, so this Stormtrooper came out. It was up for pre-order recently. And I thought these carbonized things look pretty cool. My fear with this one was that a silver Stormtrooper would just kind of look like Captain Phasma. So it wouldn't be as exciting as maybe it normally would be. And looking at it now, that is kind of how I feel about it. It does just kind of look like Captain Phasma. Maybe once I open it up, I'll have a different appreciation for it, and I'll be able to hold it side by side with Captain Phasma. But right now, looking at it, you know what? I'm almost considering maybe keeping this in the box. If you've been watching my other videos, I've been getting a lot of Stormtrooper variations lately. I just recently got the Shadow Trooper, which was in black. I got the Mountain Trooper, who's got a little bit of a different helmet. I got the brand new, just classic Stormtrooper. That I've got so many of them that part of the appeal of this is the nice reflective box. Maybe I'll even just sit this on the top of my shelf. So I don't know. Maybe we'll take a look at this in detail later in the video, or maybe we won't. I'll think about it. Next up. So this one I was excited about. I'm really into the G.I. Joe Classified line, the new 6-inch G.I. Joes. There's still some of those that I'm hunting for. But this one here, it's kind of a weird, unique twist. So this is what they call Prophet Director Destro. But that PDD initials of Prophet Director Destro really stands for Pimp Daddy Destro. Everybody in the G.I. Joe community knows that. And you can understand why. He's got this like leopard print shawl or cape that he wears. His collar is leopard print. His belt is leopard print. This figure comes with like pink sunglasses that he can wear over his helmet. He's got a wad of cash that he's lit on fire, which is, you don't get much more pimp than that. This gold gun, gold briefcase. It's a repaint of the Godzilla Destro figure we got previously. He's right here beside me, but I'm reluctant to reach for him because I don't want to knock other things over. But I'll bring him out for a side by side later. But yeah, this is like by no means like an essential figure if you're kind of just a more of a general G.I. Joe collector. But it's a really fun nod to kind of a rare, highly sought after Destro figure released in the previous lines of G.I. Joe. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But otherwise, yeah, this guy's a lot of fun. And right now I'm just so excited to get any new G.I. Joe because there's still not a lot out there. There's only about 10 figures or so in the line. So yeah, pretty cool stuff. I like the artwork on here. So it's unique to this Pimp Daddy figure. It does not look like the box art on the standard Destro. It's very cartoony. You can see he's got his pink sunglasses pulled down there. Pretty funny stuff. The back of the box is the standard painting we've seen on all the G.I. Joe Classified figures. You'll see here he's labeled as figure 15, if that matters to you. I just recently threw out my boxes for the other G.I. Joe Classified figures. I wasn't sure if I was going to keep them or not, but I just had a pile of boxes. And like I said, I've been cleaning up my man cave, and I was like, there's too many boxes over here. Some of them have to go. So I got rid of them. So yeah, this one I probably won't keep either, but it'll be tough to throw out just because it's so fun. And it's got, again, that reflective text there, which is unique to this figure. The other G.I. Joe figures don't have that reflective logo. Anyway, a lot of fun. So there's Destro. And the last one. This one's pretty cool. I'm excited about it too. So you see, this is Lionel from the Thundercats line. And this is my first ever Thundercats figure. If you're not familiar with Thundercats, they were a popular toy line and cartoon in the 80s, which is when I grew up. But Thundercats was just not something I really gravitated towards. Like I watched the cartoon, I liked it okay, but you know, I already loved G.I. Joe, Transformers, He-Man. I was into WWF wrestling. I was into Battle Beasts. I was into Star Wars. There was just no way you could collect everything. So certain lines like Thundercats, Silverhawks, I just could never really get into. So, but I always liked them, and they always seemed like they were perfect for crossing over with Masters of the Universe. The toys back in the day weren't quite to scale; they didn't quite match up. But a lot of fans just always kind of wanted to see these properties cross over, and so these figures are made. Well, it's made by Super 7, but it's sculpted by the Four Horsemen, which are the sculpting team that designed all of the Masters of the Universe Classics figures. So this is done in that Masters of the Universe style. So here we go with the box. So you see Thundercats there, the cool font for the title. Then around the front, again with the reflective packaging, a really nice red reflective logo of the panther face. So really cool. This is a nice box. This is another one that I'll probably eventually throw out, but I'll probably hold on to it for a while just because it's hard to throw out because it's so nice. Now, thankfully, I am not an in-box collector because this arrived kind of dinged up. You'll see this corner here is kind of crunched. And yeah, some collectors would probably send this back and demand a nice one. But I'm not going to get too bent out of shape about that. So anyway, you can slide this sleeve off here. And there you see Lionel, who is the leader of the Thundercats. So, yeah, he's done that Masters of the Universe style. My first ever Thundercats figure, my first Lionel figure, and he looks great. He's got a load of accessories in there. You can see he's got an alternate head. So one of them he looks much calmer. This one he's got like a snarl, kind of an angrier face. He's got the Sword of Omens. He's got one holstered on his hip there. I can't remember what his glove is called, but he's got like 3 or 4 variations of his glove. Very cool. So, yeah. There's also, okay, I almost missed it back there. There's a book back there. So forgive me, I don't remember all the mythology that goes in line with the Thundercats because I watched a little bit as a kid, but I haven't really kept up with it since. But I've always liked the look of the characters. And so Super 7 put out one wave of 4 figures, but they've already got 2 more waves of 4 figures up for pre-order. And I was reluctant to go more than one, partly because I don't know these characters super well. I have heard some people complain online about the quality of these figures, and they're very expensive. This thing here is $60 US, which in Canada is probably about $80, and then you get shipping on top of that. So like I could very easily be in for like $100 for each one of these figures. Now mind you, if I got all 4, the shipping would bring that cost down some. But anyway, they're quite expensive, and it's a lot of money to drop on a figure. Like I used to buy these kind of figures from Mattel for $30. So yeah, they've doubled in price. So depending on how much I like this one, if it really wins me over, I might be tempted to order some more of the figures from the series. But I guess we'll know that soon once I get them opened up. So, alright, so there you go. There's everything in the box. So either I'll open this up and we'll shoot the rest of the video right now, or more likely I'll open it up. I'm going to play with it a little bit, and then I'll be back either later tonight or tomorrow, and we'll shoot the rest of this video. So, thanks so much for tuning in, and yeah, let's get started. Okay, so first up out of the box, we've got the Johnny Lawrence Pop from Cobra Kai. So, see here, he's in his karate stance, ready to throw a punch or a kick. He's got his Cobra Kai logo, classic logo from the Karate Kid, on the back of his, I don't know, what do we call these? Gis, maybe? I don't know. On the back of his karate outfit, we'll say. So, there he is. Not bad. Not a whole lot to say about Funko Pops. You know, there's not much in the way of articulation. Their heads turn, and that's about it. But let's bring out the old Johnny Lawrence here for comparison. So here is the Johnny Lawrence from the Karate Kid series. So you can see the differences here. You know, they didn't just re-release the same figure. The the body is totally different, the sculpting on the stance, but they've got the same logo and everything on the back of their outfits. They both got the black headband, the blonde hair, but you know, when he was younger, he obviously combed his hair a little bit more. He doesn't seem so concerned with that in his 40s, but it's true to the show. That's what he looks like. So yeah, is it believable that this figure grew up into this figure? Sure. And I like them both. I think I'll always love this one a little bit more, but they look great together, and I'm glad I picked this up, and I'm just glad to see that the Karate Kid is back in the public eye. So now let's take a look at Daniel. Now, you didn't see it, but I had to wrestle with him a little bit to get him to stand properly. He's a little wobbly, and if you... Okay, he's doing all right now. But, yeah, I kind of had to twist his head just right to get his balance, because if I put his head straight on, that's when he was... Oh, there you go, he's standing again. Anyway, I was struggling with getting him to stand, which can be very frustrating because some Funko Pops come with little holes on their feet, and then they have a clear circular display base to keep them from falling over. You'll usually find that with like female characters because they're often sculpted with skinnier legs and stuff, so to help them stand up, they come with the display base. But I find it really frustrating when Funko sells me a figure and it doesn't stand up, and I've got a few of them. For example, my Merman figure from Masters of the Universe, my Elvira figure, they will not stand up on their own. And they don't even sculpt holes in their feet, so even if, because I assume probably some people's Merman stands up okay, it's just an issue with how mine was, constructed. I wish I had the option to buy a generic display base to plug them in, so if I did want to stand them up, it wouldn't be an issue anymore. But they don't even give you that option because they don't put holes in the feet of the figures unless they dictate that that figure needs a display base to stand up. So yeah, it's frustrating, but enough on that. Let's take a look on the figure here. So you see he's got his Miyagi-Do karate headband on. He's got the bonsai tree on the back of his outfit, just like we saw in the original Karate Kid. Now, I don't have the original Karate Kid figure, as I mentioned, to compare it to, but I can find an image of it online here. And you can see that they're pretty similar, just like the Johnnies. You know, the guy hasn't changed much in the last 30 years. He's still wearing the same white outfit. He's got a very similar headband on. The hair has changed a little bit. But, yeah, they both look really good. I don't feel the need to go seek out that old Daniel LaRusso figure, as I could probably display this figure. Let's see if I can get him to stand here again. If I displayed that figure next to this one, I don't think anybody would call me out on saying, hey, you've got the old Karate Kid next to the young Johnny Lawrence, because you really can't tell. So either way, these are fun figures, and I'm happy to add them to my collection. So next up, let's take a look at Godzilla. So as I mentioned, this is Godzilla from Tokyo S.O.S, which was from the early 2000s. So lots of nice sculpted detail throughout this figure. I like the way his fins look on his back. The paint job is nice. It's subtle, like he's mostly just gray, but he's got the white tips on these. He's got kind of a wash, so there's a bit of a greenish wash over his whole body. This thing on his chest here, I'm not even really sure what that's all about, but that's got kind of a more brownish red paint job. He's a little darker through here. And if we can get up close on his face here, he's got a really nice face sculpt with his eyes, and his teeth are painted. His mouth is articulated, so we can open that up and see that his mouth is all painted nice and pink. So yeah, a nice looking Godzilla figure. He looks a little cross-eyed from front on. That often happens with Godzilla. As far as articulation goes, it's pretty standard. He doesn't move around a ton. Like, he's got movement in his arms. So basically his elbows, his shoulders, his wrists, and his fingers. But even still, you can't get a ton of movement. Well, that's kind of interesting. This piece here is kind of soft. I'm just noticing that now. So it allows you to move his arm up a little bit easier than maybe it otherwise would if this was hard plastic. So I don't think they've done that on previous Godzilla figures, so that's kind of interesting. His legs, so he's got joints at the ankle, the knee, and the hip. But you don't get a ton of movement out of here, and why would you really want to? Godzilla is not the most agile of creatures, so you're not going to pose that around a whole lot. And his tail, he's got multiple joints on his tail, so articulation at the base, and then these segments here, there's different points of articulation. Now you'll notice his tail is actually missing here. All these Godzilla figures are packaged with their tails separate, and it's really tight to try and squeeze the tails on. Inside the package there's instructions that they recommend you put it in warm water or heat it with your hair dryer. So that's what I'll do. That's what I've had to do on previous Godzillas, is I just heat this up with my hair dryer a little bit to soften the plastic, and then I can snap that on there, and that'll work just fine, and you'll get his full tail. But I didn't have a chance to do that before shooting this. But again, you see this tail here has got a lot of articulation as well. You can twist that all kinds of different ways. Oh, and you can even take it apart at the various segments. There we go. So overall, yeah, a really cool looking Godzilla. Like I said, I think this is one of the cooler looking Godzillas. Like if we bring in some of the other ones. So here's a Godzilla that's based on some of the earlier movies. And I really like this figure too. This one's based on Godzilla versus King Kong. And I think this figure is great. It really captures the look of Godzilla from that movie. But I think you can tell by looking at him that he looks a little doofy. He's not super threatening. He looks almost like a Muppet. And then if I bring in a Godzilla from one of the newer films. So this guy looks cool. But I find he looks a little pinheaded compared to some of these other Godzilla figures. It's because in the modern movie, Godzilla is supposed to be that much bigger than he ever was before. And so to kind of make him seem bigger in scale. They've shrunk his head, which is maybe fine if you have this figure on its own, but as soon as you display him next to these other Godzillas, he ends up looking actually smaller than them. So I think this is a good kind of happy medium. It really looks like he does in the film. It's a cooler, not so goofy of a design on the head, and he's a good size. He looks a little more menacing than this guy does, just because this guy kind of gets scaled down in size. So yeah, maybe I'll do a video later where I compare all my Neca Godzillas, because Neca just recently lost the license to make Godzillas, so I don't think I'll be adding too many more to my collection, maybe no more. So this might be the last Neca Godzilla I ever get. So yeah, I might have to do a video where I compare all the different ones, but I can already tell you that this guy will probably be near the top of the list. Really cool figure. And next up we have the Carbonized Stormtrooper. So you can see I did decide to open him up. However, I might hold on to the packaging because it wouldn't be that hard to put him back inside of the box if I chose to display him that way. So yeah, he's pretty standard Stormtrooper. Nothing really new here other than the paint scheme. So this is, like as I mentioned, the carbonized look. So I don't know exactly what carbonized is supposed to mean. It just kind of gives him this shimmery silver paint job. As far as his guns, most of the other Stormtroopers have come with standard black guns, and that's what we get here. There's no extra shimmer or shine here, so he's got this small little blaster, and he's got his holster on his leg, so you can tuck that in there. And then he also has this larger rifle, and he's got a little trigger finger there. So that works out pretty good. You can put that in there and put his finger through there, so he holds onto that pretty nicely. So there you go. So he looks pretty cool. However, as I mentioned earlier, I was concerned that the silver paint job was a little underwhelming, partially because of Captain Phasma, the Stormtrooper commander that was introduced in the prequel trilogy, in the sequel trilogy. And you can see here that, yeah, I think they're pretty similar. Like, it's not the exact same paint job. I don't know if that comes across on the camera, but the difference is pretty small. And this is just a standard figure. Nothing super special about this one. So yeah, I'm not really seeing a big difference to make this one kind of a premium figure in any particular way. And not to say that it will be, but most of those other carbonized figures that I showed you earlier, they fetch quite a bit more money than the standard versions on the secondary market. So yeah, I don't know if this one will be just as hard to find and will also go up in value, but I guess we'll see about that soon enough. Now, one thing, if you were curious, in my last video, I showed you this new Stormtrooper figure. So this is a standard Stormtrooper, but this was just released in the most recent wave of Black Series figures. And there's nothing really special or unique about it, but it was done to kind of enhance the previous Stormtrooper figure, which I guess maybe this mold is a little more accurate, maybe the scale is a little more accurate. So here is the older Stormtrooper compared to the new one. The differences I pointed out in my last video was that the new one is a little bit shorter. His head is definitely a little bit smaller. But other than that, unless you're like a really hardcore fan, I don't really see much in the way of differences. I don't see where this one is like any less accurate than that guy is. But I'm sure there's somebody out there that can tell me in the comments if there's any major differences that I'm missing. But anyway, if you were curious, this figure here appears to be a redo of this older Stormtrooper. So that seems a little odd to me, that if Hasbro really has taken the time to make a new and improved Stormtrooper with this mold here, I don't know why they wouldn't have taken this and carbonized it as well, since these figures are coming out right around the same time. But anyway, there you go. Not much else to tell you. The articulation is pretty standard. The weapons are pretty standard. It's the same stuff we've seen with 20 Stormtrooper figures previously. So yeah, if you're a big fan of the silver paint job, then I guess go out and get this. But if that doesn't do a whole lot for you, then yeah, I don't think he's essential to your collection. So next up is Pimp Daddy Destro. So let's take a closer look at him. So he's got the gold helmet. He's got his little medallion here. His big popped collar. He's got this holster on his leg here. So yeah, nice looking figure. The pimpiness really comes from that leopard print. And yeah, it looks really great. It's in a couple of different spots on him. So on his legs here, up on the collar, up here in the kind of the mid torso. Yeah, and then the reds and the maroons and the gold. Like, it's a pretty garish, pretty bold outfit. He's got a little bit of gold on his boots there. And yeah, like I say, I love it as a variant to the regular Destro. And so here's the regular Destro, previously released. And you can see here, I think the sculpt is the exact same. Now, one thing that is a little different is this Destro here. He's got this circle sculpted into his head. And I've heard that they've since changed that. So now if you were to buy this figure in stores now, he no longer has that circle in his head. I'm not sure why. And you can see here with my Pimp Destro, he does not have that circle in his head. So anyway, other than that though, I think these use all the exact same parts. Everything there from the wrist, like rocket launcher, the gloves, even here. So parts that are painted, such as here, he's got gray on his outfit, which is separate from the black. On this figure, those areas aren't separate. They're all the same color. But you'll see here, for example, like this is sculpted. You can feel this line that runs down the middle of them. And so they painted it two different colors here. Whereas this figure, he still has that sculpted, but it's all done in black. So it works out pretty well. They look, they're the same, but they look different. And I like them both. Now, as far as accessories go, so this Destro, he's got his Cobra briefcase, and Pimp Daddy Destro has the same, except his is pimp and gold. It does open up, so be delicate with this. So inside, you see he's got money sculpted in there, and then like a computer panel on this side. So that's all well and good, but I feel it's a bit of a missed opportunity. There could have been they could have put a little bit of effort into painting that money, and it would have been nice maybe if there's some other things that actually came out of this case. But what are you going to do? So he's got his gold suitcase. He's got a little gold gun, which I think is the same as this Destro. He actually had a little gold gun too. So this was the only gold piece with this Destro, other than his necklace there. So this guy, same thing. I'll probably put that little gun, holster it there. Fits in nice and snug. Now, he does not have an equivalent of this gun, which is kind of a shame because that is a nice gun there. So yeah, I wish this guy had that as well. But he does have a couple of pieces that this guy does not have. So first up, he's got this cape with the leopard print, and that carries right around the back. So I haven't put this on him yet, so let's see how this works. So his collar pops up through there, slides in tight over top, and there you go. So it's like a red cape with this kind of leopard print throw over top of it. So yeah, that's definitely pretty pimpin'. He's got this money that he has on fire, which is pretty corny. It's like something out of a rap video, but why not? So there you go, with his flaming money. And lastly, he's got some pink sunglasses. It's pretty ridiculous, but they fit on him pretty good. They go on right over his ears. I don't know if you can see that pink hue to them, but it's like silver on the arms and then pink on the front. Now, I think that's actually that's where it goes just a little bit over the top for me. I don't mind the cape. I don't mind the maroon outfit and the leopard print. I don't mind the burning money. But the pink sunglasses wearing over top of a full gold head, I think that's where they jump the shark a little bit. So I'm tempted not to display him with the sunglasses. The only problem is if I don't do that, then those sunglasses are going to end up in a spare parts bin, and they're pretty thin and pretty delicate, and I'm worried they'll break. So just for their own protection, I probably will keep them on my Pimp Daddy's head. So there you go. There's Pimp Daddy Destro. Now, just if you're kind of wondering what the hell is the deal with this guy, like why did Hasbro decide to go this route, I'll give you just a quick little bit of history on the character. So basically, G.I. Joe had gone dormant after 1994, but then they decided to revive it on a very small scale in the late 90s. So the plan was that they were going to take some of the old figures and re-release them in new paint schemes. So apparently they'd lost the mold to do the original 1983 Destro. So what they were going to do is take the 1992 version 3 Destro and then add some new colors to it. And one of the proposed color schemes was this. So a small number of figures were produced with the leopard print color scheme, and it was going to be released in a 3-pack along with Cobra Commander and the Baroness. But Hasbro decided to pull the plug on this color scheme. They thought it was a little too outlandish. So what they did is they took that version 3 1992 Destro, and instead of putting the leopard print, they put solid black for his collar and on his legs, and that's how he was released. Although there are quite a few of those Pimp Daddy Destros floating around. A lot of collectors have them. They're highly sought after. They're very expensive. They're very collectible because some get out on the market, but not a lot. And some people say that they've seen them in stores back in the day. So a few of them might have even made it their way to retail shelves. I don't know if I'm imagining things, but I feel I saw these things on shelves. I wasn't collecting G.I. Joe in the 90s, but I remember when they did bring back these figures in the late 90s, 97, 98, and I saw them in Toys R Us. I thought they were cool, but they were just repaints of figures I already had, and I remember thinking, like, you know what, I wish they were just making new figures instead of giving us what we already have, and so I didn't buy any of them at the time, but I really seem to recall seeing Pimp Daddy Destro and thinking, well, that's a pretty crazy outfit for Destro. Now, they didn't call him Pimp Daddy Destro or even Prophet Destro or whatever they call this guy. But that's kind of what the name the fans gave him later. Now, unfortunately, I don't have that 1997 Pimp Daddy Destro, but this is not the first time that Hasbro has paid homage to that highly sought-after collectible. In 2007, when Hasbro started what is kind of known as the modern era of G.I. Joes, so this was the first Destro they produced in 2007. So this figure was a little bit bigger, a little bit more detailed than the toys of the 80s and 90s. And so this was the retail release Destro. And then at the G.I. Joe convention that year, they released this special pimped out version of Destro. So you can see him in all his leopard print glory with this nice kind of chrome packaging. And so yeah, you'll see here, this is the same figure, just done in these crazy colors. And with this one here, because it was a convention exclusive and, you know, can be a little pricey on the secondary market, I decided to keep this one in package, and I just keep him pinned on my wall as a display piece. You'll notice even his display base, I don't know if you can see it there, his display base is kind of chrome gold too, which is pretty nice. It would probably look pretty nice if I took it out of the package, but I don't think I'm going to anytime soon. And yeah, you'll notice this package makes no reference to pimping either. Again, that's just the name that fans have given him. Hasbro, I don't think, would ever say that officially. But anyway, I really like the idea of this figure. I think it's kind of a fun little, almost inside joke amongst G.I. Joe fans. So it's pretty surprising that Hasbro went and released this figure as a wide retail release so early on in the classified lineup. Because, like I said, there's only about 10 figures that exist so far. So the fact that they repainted Destro and gave us this crazy figure already, yeah, it's interesting. But I think it's a lot of fun. So I'm glad they did it. So there you go, Pimp Daddy Destro. And next up we have Lionel from the Thundercats. So let's get a closer look at this guy. I think he looks pretty great. I just opened this guy up, so you know I'm exploring him for the first time as you're seeing this here. I haven't tried to pose him or anything like that as of yet. But yeah, the articulation feels pretty standard for what we've seen from Masters of the Universe Classics. He feels good. He doesn't feel too loose. I think that's one of the complaints that I've seen from others online. But no, he feels pretty sturdy. So no issues there. So yeah, let's first talk a little bit about his accessories. So this figure was essentially released previously, I think it was back in 2015. So Mattel was releasing their Masters of the Universe Classics figures, and the way that you ordered those was there was a monthly subscription, and every month there was a new figure exclusively to Mattel's website. And that's how I built up my Masters of the Universe Classics collection. So as Masters of the Universe was winding down, then Mattel decided to do the same thing with their Thundercats, with a line of, I believe they were called Thundercats Classics. Now, Thundercats fans were really excited about this line. There was a lot of potential for it, but they only put out the first wave of figures, and then they stopped producing it. So this was one of the figures that they did produce. So some fans were able to get this figure 5 years ago, but they were made in pretty small numbers, and a lot of fans missed out on it, as well as the other 3 figures in the wave. So when Mattel stopped making Masters of the Universe Classics, a smaller company, Super 7, they kind of swept in to save the day, and they said, can we continue making Masters of the Universe Classics figures? Now, mind you, I don't know exactly how the negotiations went, but essentially Super 7 took over Masters of the Universe Classics, and they continued to make new figures, and they continued to re-release some of the sought-after figures that Mattel had previously done. And so they did that for a couple of years. But now Super 7 no longer has the license to do Masters of the Universe. So they're branching out, and they're using their Classics line to cover some other properties. And so this is when they started this line. And they switched from calling it Classics to Ultimates. So this is the Ultimate version of Lionel. And this figure, as well as the other 3 figures in Super 7's first wave, are basically redos of the 4 figures that Mattel offered 5 years ago. But the next 3 waves of figures that I showed you earlier, those are all brand new figures produced by Super 7 with sculpts from the 4 Horsemen. So they'll blend in perfectly with these figures. And even if you're somebody that had the first 5 figures from Mattel and you didn't buy this particular figure, Super 7's later figures should mix in with these guys pretty flawlessly because, like I said, this is essentially the exact same figure. Now, I don't have the Mattel version to do a comparison, but there are some comparison videos online. I'll just put up a picture here for a moment. You can see there are some differences, some slight color variations, the way the paint is done on the face. If I had the 2 of them, I don't know, maybe I would prefer the Mattel version. I don't know. Mattel typically made superior figures to Super 7. A lot of people weren't happy with the Masters of the Universe figures, at least early on when Super 7 took on the license. I never really had a problem with any of Super 7's figures. I quite liked them. So not having the other Lionel to compare to, this is all I really know. And yeah, I don't see any flaws with them. If the colors are off, or maybe the eyes aren't as sharp as the other one, or I don't know. And I think he looks great. So I'm really happy with this guy. And where this guy does differ a little bit from the previous release, and what makes this figure the ultimate version of Lionel, is that he has some additional accessories. So you'll see here he's got his sword of omens. So this is the sword that Lionel holds up to his face, and to be honest, I don't even remember. It powers him up or something. I don't think it was the same, like with He-Man. He-Man transformed from Prince Adam to He-Man. I don't think Lionel necessarily needed to power up, but I honestly don't remember. It's been 30 years since I watched these cartoons. And even when it comes to He-Man and stuff, there's comic books and there's movies, so I've kind of stayed up to date. Thundercats, I've never watched any of the kind of updated cartoons, and I don't think anybody publishes any comic books. So yeah, I'm really out of date as far as the lore goes. So not only does he have his sword there, but on his belt buckle, he's got this glove. And I don't remember what it was called, but it also serves as a sheath to his sword. So you can see he's got the little Sword of Omens sheathed inside there. I think once he powered up, the sword grew from a dagger into a full-size sword. Now this thing here, you'll notice there's a little, I don't know if you can see it there, there's a little hook on his belt. So you can just slide that off there. So then he's got the little plug. And I'm not 100% sure if this little dagger comes out, but that's what I'm going to try and do here now. You know what? Oh, there we go. So yeah, you can take that out. So now he's got his little teeny dagger version of the Sword of Omens before it transforms into the big crazy sword there. So that's pretty cool. So you can display that on there. And again, I don't know the history of this, but there are 2 different gloves included. So this one here, so you can just see that. I don't know how well you can see it. My lighting is terrible. I apologize. But there's just a little hole in there just big enough for him to put the sword, and it's got that little hook. So this is clearly intended to go on his belt, and that's all there is to it. Now, this is a very smooth glove. It almost looks like the Infinity Gauntlet, like it could be metallic. But then he also has this version of it, which is much hairier. So yeah, it's the same thing, but different. Now this one here, you can tell that it also has the hilt to the dagger, but that is not removable. Like that's just part of the sculpt. I'm not sure why that's the case, but it also has the little hook there, so you could hook that on in place of the other one, I suppose. I don't know how easy it is to get that on here, but... Alright, well, I'm not going to put that on there. It's a bit of a bummer. I was just trying to clip this on, and I think I actually broke this peg. It kind of came loose. It didn't break right off, but it definitely is delicate, and it was... I wasn't trying to do anything crazy. I was just trying to put this over the hole that it's meant to go on. So that's a bit of a bummer. Anyway, you have the option. So if you're a hardcore Thundercats fan and you prefer the hairy glove as opposed to the smooth glove, you can display it either way. Now also, Lionel wears the glove, and he's got 2 versions of the glove that actually have a hole here where you can put it onto his hand. So he's got this version where he can wear that instead of having the hand, and you've got the smooth one and the hairy one again. Now, I'm sure they fit on there nice and easy. I'm a little reluctant to do that right now since I almost broke his little belt buckle off. But maybe I was doing it a little bit fast because I was trying to do it on camera here and that didn't work out. So maybe later when I'm fidgeting around with this guy, I will carefully swap out his hands and see how that looks. He also has a couple regular hands. So he has 4 swappable hands. So right now I've got him holding his sword, but it is kind of a loose grip. He's not holding it very tightly. That can fall out quite easily. But that's because these are more... I'm not sure what those hands are intended for, but they are kind of loose, very lightly gripping hands. But he does have firmer gripping hands, so this would be better for holding his sword. He's got 2 of them. They seem almost identical. I'm not sure what the difference is really. And same thing with the other side. He's got 2 gripping right hands, 2 gripping left hands. The difference is so minimal. I really don't know what the difference is. I think I would have rather them give him a set of closed fists or maybe open slapping hands or something. It seems like kind of a waste to give us duplicates of the same hands. His other accessory is this book, which I'm just going to guess. I think it's called the Book of Omens. I don't remember what it was for. Again, you can comment in the comments below if you want to add that information for other viewers, but I don't remember, and I don't particularly care. It's a neat little accessory, but that's probably just going to go in my spare parts bin anyway. And then he has this head with a much angrier snarl on there. And that's pretty cool. So before we wrap things up, I'm just going to step away for a second, and I'm going to swap out some of these parts, and we'll come back and we'll take a look at them with the alternate head and the alternate hands. Okay, and we're back with Lionel. Now, you see I swapped out his gripping hand here. So now he's got a much firmer grip on that sword. So that works out nicely. I've got his angry head on there. Now, I'll be honest, the other head came off pretty easy, but this one didn't really snap into place. So I don't know if it's really on there quite right. It doesn't feel like it's on there right. Yeah, so I don't know. I'm reluctant to push on it too much. And that's a bit of a bummer. Because, so I also put his other hand on here. That glove went on pretty easily. So no problems there. But I tried to carefully put this, where was it? I tried to carefully put this thing back on his belt buckle. This is the one that was on him originally. And that little peg broke right off. I was being very delicate, but it took like almost no pressure and the thing just snapped right off. So considering I just dropped almost $100 on this figure and his head doesn't swap out very good and that little peg broke off, and they gave me, they try and sell me this as an Ultimates figure because of all the extra parts. But really, the hands are identical. And then all these extra gloves, especially now, they're all pretty much redundant since that broke off. It's kind of a bummer, I'll be honest. Like, he looks really cool. I kind of wish I hadn't messed with that at all, because now I can't display him with any glove on his waist, and I really would have preferred to keep this hanging there. It just kind of added a little extra something to him there. So yeah, a bit of a bummer. Now, before we go, let's just do a little bit of a comparison. If you're wondering how he will look with your Masters of the Universe Classics figures, I've got a He-Man here to display next to him. So you can see the scale is pretty much right on the money. Height-wise, they're about the exact same height, except for Lionel's crazy haircut, and the fact that this head isn't sitting as low as it probably should. But yeah, so as far as the sculpting and the design work goes, I think they go together pretty great. So yeah, you can definitely mingle these Thundercats into your Masters of the Universe collection. So will I buy any more of these Thundercats? You know what? I probably will. I do have a couple on pre-order already, but I'm not committed to them. I could cancel them at any time. But I'm really hoping maybe Super 7 has addressed some of these issues with Wave 1 and that their future waves will be superior. They won't be so delicate. But there's no denying that this figure looks great. I only buy these figures to display. I don't really play with them or take a lot of photos with them. Once I've done my initial kind of reviews here, I just set them up for display. So I'm not too concerned on, if their joints are too loose or if their parts are too delicate once they go up on the shelf. But I do think they should at least be able to survive the initial reviews without any damage. So anyway, yeah, I'm a little bummed about Lionel right now, but what are you going to do? Okay, so that was a closer look at all my new toys from Big Bad Toy Store. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please make sure to hit the like button, maybe subscribe to my channel, and feel free to leave me comments below. I've been getting some comments lately. Some people that have watched my videos have reached out on other social media. You can find me on Instagram as Mike's Collection Halifax. So yeah, please feel free to follow me on there and send me messages. I'm happy to respond. So yeah, again, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time. Ciao.